Welcome back to Wishwell Farms, everyone. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the numerous weekly tasks that go into maintaining and taking care of greenhouse tomatoes. Okay, we are currently in one of our 5 greenhouses. 4 of those are used for growing hydroponic greenhouse tomatoes. We start seeding them at the very first of the year, and I've been growing them for 20 years. We have approximately 12,000 square feet of growing space, and we plant greenhouse tomatoes 4 times, 4 different plantings, and 2 outdoor plantings. So I feel like I got a pretty good handle on how to grow greenhouse tomatoes, but even after 20 years, I still learn something new every year. But in today's video, I want to take you step by step the 6 weekly tasks that have to be done on every plant in order to maintain them and to keep them manageable and to keep them producing great looking tomatoes to sell at our farmers markets. So let's jump right in and go over these 6 tasks that we do each week in the greenhouses. All right, one of the most important jobs we do in here to maintain these plants is keeping them as one long single stem and not letting them branch out and bush out. So we have to sucker them each week. This sucker was missed last week, that's why it's so large, but this is the main stem right here, and we want to keep it to one stem. So we're going to break these suckers off right here at the joint of the plant. See how they just kind of snap right off? Here's another example of a sucker. If you look at the top of it, you can tell it looks like a new baby plant. Here's a nice big one right in front of the string. Can you see it? There's the main top right here. There's the sucker. And these are the kind I like, right in the corner of the main stem and the branch. They snap right off. Oh, there, that's what we don't want to happen. See the peel? That's like taking the bark off of a tree. So we try to avoid that. Doing everything with one hand makes it a little tricky sometimes. If you're wondering why I'm wearing gloves, your hands will be green like the Incredible Hulk at the end of the day, and you have to have scrub brushes to get it off. Okay, job number 2 is pruning the fruit clusters down to 4 fruit. The reason we do that is because it will give us larger, nicer tomatoes. It gives us an opportunity to trim away any ugly shaped tomatoes that we don't want to harvest later on, but it also puts the energy and nutrients of the plant into growing just 4 tomatoes. The other reason is that we don't want 7 tomatoes on this cluster is because there's only a determined amount, a set amount of fruit that a tomato plant is going to produce. And it's going to come to the end of its life sooner if we let every cluster have 6, 7, 8 tomatoes on it. And you can see here there's 4 larger ones. We're going to keep those. I'm going to cut off these 2 small pea-sized tomatoes. Usually just take a pair of scissors and snip them off. That cluster is done. We have to do that to every plant. Keep it between 3 and 4 tomatoes. Number 3, when the tomatoes start getting heavy, the tomato truss, which is this section here that holds all the tomatoes on, will kink, and it will hang really low. It'll actually kink right here on the stem and block the nutrients from getting to the tomatoes. So we often will try to do this before they kink, but a lot of times it happens ahead of time and we fix them when we see the kink. So this is called a J-hook, and it just attaches to the string. And we hook it on the tomato truss, and it will support the weight of the tomatoes as they continue to get large. Here we have a prime example of a tomato cluster that has kinked. The weight of the tomato has made the tomato truss no longer be able to support the weight of the fruit. So I'm going to use a J-hook to support this cluster. It gives us 3 options to hook the string. I'm going to use the second option here. Hook it right there in the middle of the tomato cluster, and voila, fully supported. Number 4. If you take a look at this tomato, you can see how it's really leaning away from the string. This is where we put clips on to help keep the tomato up against the string and continue to grow upright. So we put a clip on the string, bring the tomato to it, and clip it. And we always do it right under a branch, so the weight of the tomato plant will be resting on this clip. We currently have 4 or 5 clips on each tomato, and each week the tomato will be another foot taller, and we'll have to put another clip on. Number 5, each week at the very top of the plant, 3 new branches will form. So there's the 3 latest that have opened up and formed over the last week. We like to maintain only 10 to 12 branches on each plant. We usually shoot for around 12. And in order to do that, we have to remove 3 at the bottom of the plant each week. So if you look down here currently, we want to keep these little suckers that grow off the bottom of the plant as well. There's already been 3 branches removed from this stalk last week. So we're going to snap off the next 3 branches. 1, 2, 3. There's the 3 bottom branches. Now if I counted these branches on up the plant, there should only be about 12. Now there are several reasons that we remove the 3 bottom branches. One is they're not really needed. The plant, as long as it has 10 to 12 branches and full of leaves on the stalk, that's enough to have the photosynthesis that it needs to grow good tomatoes and ripen them to maturity. The other reason is that you'll see here in the next job, job 6, task 6, if we didn't do this, as these tomatoes grew taller and when they get leaned and lowered, it would just be a bushy, disastrous mess down here around the irrigation lines and the buckets all over the ground. So those are the 2 main reasons that we remove 3 branches. All right, the 6th and final task that we do in here each week is lower and lean the plant. So you can see this plant right now is nearly 7 feet tall and approaching the top of the trellis where the spool of string is wrapped up. When that happens, we have to lower this plant to make room for it to continue growing. So what we'll do is we'll pull this spool off the wire, unwind it a revolution, and slide it into this position where this plant is. To make that work, you obviously have to start at the beginning and move them out of the way. And then you go right down the line. We lower and lean our plants clockwise, and that will drop this plant another foot or so to continue to grow for another week. So I'm going to grab the spool, and this is going to be very difficult with one hand. Unwind it and move it over. And since I didn't start at the beginning, they're going to be overlapping. That's all right. Now you can see this plant has room to grow for another week. When they're growing very vigorously in the hot days of late spring, early summer, we will do the full revolution here and slide them further down the cable, and then that will allow the plant to have even more room to grow. Now it has about 1.5 feet. This is called lowering and leaning, and it will be done all the way around the greenhouse. They aren't quite needing it yet. Next week they'll all have to be leaned and lowered. If we didn't do this, they would get to the wire trellis and then just fall over and start growing in every different direction. The only other way to do this would be to have a wire trellis way up on the top of the greenhouse, but then we would have to have some kind of lift to get us up there to work on the plants, because most of the work each week takes place up here in the top of the plant area. By the end of the summer, early fall, these plants will be 20 to 25 feet long. As you can see here, we have many different tomato growth stages currently. Tomatoes that have just sprouted and came up a few weeks ago that are going to be our 4th greenhouse tomato planting. And then we have 2 different stages of tomatoes in our 2nd greenhouse. And then here in our large greenhouse, you can see the tomatoes are already on their 4th and 5th cluster and over 6 feet tall. The reason we plant our hydroponic tomatoes 4 different times is so they don't all come on at once. This allows the harvest window to be stretched out from May until we terminate them in October. One of the questions I often get at farmers markets around Columbus, Ohio is, why do I grow my tomato plants hydroponically and not in the soil? Don't soil tomatoes taste better? Well, it's hard to beat a good outdoor field-grown tomato. That is true. Unfortunately, in Ohio, those are not ready till early to mid-August. So we want to have tomatoes available to sell at our many farmers markets that we attend around Columbus beginning in May when the farmers markets start. We actually grew our greenhouse tomatoes in the soil 20 years ago, And then I ended up buying a hydroponic setup from somebody, and I was amazed at how much easier it was to grow the tomatoes and how much better the fruit quality was and the production, the pounds per plant. So we switched everything over to hydroponic, and I have no regrets. They taste exactly the same as greenhouse grown tomatoes in the soil. Alrighty folks, that's going to wrap up today's hydroponic greenhouse tomato video. If you like these type of videos, let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to showcase some more of our farming operation in future videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again real soon down on the farm.